What's happening, Color Commentary family? It is Marcus Lloyd, your host of Color Commentary, which is colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. And with me, as always, is Mr. Antwuan Malone. What's up, Antwuan?
Yo, what's up, Mr. Top Gun Maverick? For those who didn't, he got the Top Gun Maverick.
I love this movie.
For those of you who are audio only,
do not start with me on this movie. When this movie came,
you like this movie,
bro. I was not feeling this movie when I heard about it, and I know it. If people are listening, they're like, "Why are we talking about this movie?"
It's way long time ago. I know.
But I'm just telling the story again. Like when it came out, whenever 3 years ago, and they were like, "We're going to do another Maverick, or we're going to do another Top Gun. It's going to have Tom Cruise in it again." I was out.
He said, "Don't touch a good thing."
I wasn't going to do it, and then I got talked into going. I don't know if I went with you or if I don't know who I went with. Man, I saw that movie. I took my kids because we saw it. No, I went with Lisa, and I loved it so much that I immediately came home and I was like, "Tomorrow, kids, we're going to see this movie again." And we went and saw it. We went right there and saw the movie like the next day. And as soon as it came out on streaming, I watched it probably 3 times. I watched it enough that Solomon, who watches stuff over and over again, that he literally came to me like, "You watching that again, Dad?" I was like, "Yes, I'm watching it again." I love that movie, and I love F1. They're made by the same people.
Made by the same people with the same.
Oh man, it's so DNA. Like I feel like I'm in the car. I feel like I'm in the plane. And I've watched F1.
I still need to see F1.
You got it. Look,
and you're not the only one that's told me that I need to see it. Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that probably 7, 8, 9 times as well.
Really, I'm not avoiding it for any reason. I just haven't.
You just look. Then stop avoiding, and you need to watch it tonight. If it was in the theaters right now, I would go. I'm coming over.
We're gonna do it tonight. Yeah.
It'll be like seeing Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? Have you seen the new Michael?
I did.
All right, we just do a whole thing real quick while we're here. Like, okay,
yeah. Well, I thought it was good. 7.7.
7.
Let's give it an 8. Let's give it an 8. An 8 out of 10.
Okay.
An 8 out of 10. It was better than I thought it would be. I enjoyed myself a lot more than I thought I would enjoy myself, and that is, there's a lot to say about the Michael movie. So, but I would say this is an entertaining movie. I don't know how, if you're just going just to enjoy yourself or just to get in there, I think there's enough in there that the pacing's good. Like, I don't know. It's a hard story to tell. And I think you have to cut out a lot. And anyway,
you gotta remove children so you can tell the story. They didn't even have all the kids there.
Well, yeah, they didn't even get to that part. And I'm sure you heard the background. Like they were going to go into that and legal things, prevented it, and all that. Diana Ross they had a Diana Ross character, and I was wondering about she's not in there. So there's a lot of stuff that's not there.
Sure.
But if you think about Michael Jackson, like, oh my gosh, from childhood to adult, like there's so many elements to his story. How in the world? And it's 2 hours with this.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like those 2 hours were wasted.
Nope.
Or that we were prolonged in any one space than we needed to be. I thought the pacing was good. So it's just a big story.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's the way I feel about it, the way you're making me feel. I don't know if it was because I grew up in that era with the music and I was kind of old, it's not nostalgia, or if it was a good movie. You know what I'm saying? Like it just hit me in so many different spots. I cried like 3 times in that movie.
It's got a lot of spots to it.
Got a lot of, and just they did a couple of things where they did like an entire song, like 3 times, and he had to dance it. They did it on stage, right? And he had to dance that. I was just as a historic, as a dude who used to be doing a lot of movie stuff, right? Like I'm just wasn't awed by that because they matched it. You know what I mean? I'm just pretty sure I'm assuming that if they're going to do that kind of work, they're going to match the moves, and it was great. So, and here's the thing: you gave it an 8, but how many times have you seen it so far?
I've seen it twice.
There you go. Okay, there we go. That's
I'd go.
It's been out 3 days. You've seen it twice.
I'd see it again. I think it's going to be a major stream hit.
Oh man,
I can see people just watching it back to back. just because of the way the songs are, and you know, they just do a good job just capturing the Michael,
the whole thing
phenomenon, you know, for that era. It's very interesting we there's a lot more to talk about with that, but
there is. We don't have to spend every time. All I know is I have the only times I ever stay until the lights come on in a movie is like Marvel stuff, because you're looking for the last scene. I stayed until the lights came on because the music was playing, and it was something surrounded by it. And
I know it's great.
I was like, I'm not getting up, yo. This is what I'm sitting in and listening to all this stuff again. So it's all good. So hey, look, that's one thing that's been going on in the world today. You know what I mean? The engagements. But we're back quickly. Back in the mic. I know people are like, hey, y'all just released a thing on Power. What's the deal? Because one of the great pieces of Power, right, is being sort of some of the examples of some of the things that we talked about in our last episode are kind of right in here. And so I'm sure many people are aware of this, the way that the Supreme Court is now kind of they have decided against something in Louisiana around the Voting Rights Act. And so that's been a hot button. I mean, I've heard about it. Antwuan, you heard about this? I mean, have you been in on
yeah.
You seen anybody talking about this?
Yeah, I've heard about it and took a little time to try to get my head wrapped around it. You know, you've got all the varying levels of different sides of reporting and opinions, and so you try to take a second just to kind of like, what does it mean for me? And so yeah, at the end of the day, I'm disappointed, I think, in where we are for a couple of reasons.
Well, before we get into that, let me try to break it down, because I don't know if they see it and they're going to understand fully what's going on, right? Like, so the case we're ultimately talking about is Louisiana versus, I think it's Callais. I think that's how to say it. And it deals with this Voting Rights Act, basically, of 1965, but specifically Section 2, right? So I say, like, imagine, so give me kind of a metaphor, if you will. So you imagine you're a group of people and you're sitting around a table, and everybody's supposed to get a fair say in what happens. But somehow, every time decisions are made, one group consistently walks away kind of unheard, right? Now, the people who are running the meeting, they'll say things like, look, we didn't mean to ignore this group of people, right? So Section 2 in the Voting Rights Act of 1965 says, I hear you, bro, but I'm not just listening to what you meant. I'm looking at what keeps happening, right? I'm not looking at what you said you were going to do. I'm looking about the impact and what's actually being produced. And that's the key. It focuses on outcomes. That's what Section 2 always did, not just intentions, right? So now if we take this table and we kind of look at this case, we're really talking about it in terms of like a map, right? A geographical map. So every 10 years, states redraw their voting districts, right? Think of like slicing your city into tiny pieces, right? And they draw lines in certain ways. So if one way you draw a line, there's a community, and you may have a community that stays together and can actually choose someone who represents them. So a lot of times you'll have these minority communities, and so you'll draw a line around them, and so that they can make sure that they have representation of the minorities that they are, right? And so, but another way you can draw this line is that you can split that same community into like 3 or 4 different pieces, right? You got the same people, same votes, but now their voice is scattered, and it's like trying to have a conversation by cutting, this mic into fragments, right? Like their votes gets diluted. So you got one in which they can, get their vote heard, but then when you break it down and you slice another way, their voice gets diluted. So, for years under Section 2, courts could step in and say, hey, if a community is big enough and connected, but your map is keeping them from having a real shot at representation, you got to fix that. And sometimes that meant, creating a district where that community had a fair opportunity to elect someone they chose. But now this was not guaranteed power, but at least gave it a fair shot at this. And now here's where this case sort of flips the script a little bit. In Louisiana, the court said that the state needed to create a second district where Black voters had that kind of opportunity, where they can, vote for people who can represent them, right? So the state did that. They redrew the map so that they had this Black community. But then the new map got challenged, not for ignoring race, but for using race, right? And the Supreme Court said even using race to fix the problem can violate the Constitution. So now think about that table again that I said at the very beginning. One group keeps getting ignored, and you say, let's adjust the process so their voices actually get heard. And the response is you're not allowed to consider who's being unheard or left out when you fix the problem. And that's kind of the tension we're sitting in now. The law says you can't disadvantage people based on race, and the court is saying you also can't use race to correct that disadvantage. And so now we have sort of this tool that we were using, this Section 2, but it's gotten weakened, and only really works if, it only really works if you're allowed to look honestly at racial outcomes and sometimes respond to them. So, we move to a system that says pay attention to what's happening in real life, to something closer to don't look at race at all, even when race is shaping the outcome. So is that a fair breakdown to some extent?
Yeah, that lays it out. And I know that my wife and I, we were thinking about it, and we had come to the table having misunderstood the second clause there. We thought that it was saying we thought it was like, oh, you're not going to use race,
right?
And we first heard that as, okay, well, that's fine, until we understood that the considering race when you're drawing a line is actually the point of that second point, not because you want it to be preferential, but because you wanted to ensure equality of voice and not dilute the minority voices amidst all of the majority voices or what have you. So I think that was a good distinction, and I can see where there are people in the room who would feel conflicted potentially about that, because on the face of it, to say, hey, we don't want to consider race when we draw our districts, sounds like the right thing to say. Sounds like the Dr. King thing to say, I would imagine someone would say, right? And this is where it feels a little bit like the colorblind conversation that we've had in the past.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly the differentiation. You got colorblind justice, which is, the government should never use race, even fixing inequality, with the terminology of race is kind of considered dangerous. And then I think the alternative version of it is substantive justice, in which you must consider race to address racial inequality, right? Ignoring it can just, continue to reinforce the injustice. And this is not, look, it matters, right? Like it matters in the ways in which our country is continuing to be shaped and designed. And this is not new stuff, right?
No, it's a third act of a 3-act play here.
If it's only 3 acts, you know what I mean? Like it's just the next act.
This law, like it feels like I think it was 2013, and this is where I don't have it all, but bits and pieces of this act have seemed to have been slowly unraveled, one piece at a time, and this feels like the final piece of it, to where now the Voters Act seems to have very little actual teeth. It says something, but the ability to enforce what it's saying is almost impossible now.
Yeah.
How do you prove that inequality is happening right now without the stipulations that they've removed?
Or how do you prove that the inequality is race-based?
Or race-based, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of the big piece, right? And you're right. I think this has been happening. It happened with the Voting Rights Act, right? And it's gone through a couple of iterations. 1965 Voting Rights Act, 1982. I think Section 2 was updated to kind of affirm and focus on impact as opposed to just intent, because that's where the wrestling was like it was dealing with intent. As I know it now, it's the results piece. That's 1982, and I think you're talking about 2013. The Shelby County removes federal pre-Clinton protections, and then we got 2024 what we're dealing with right now. And it seems that I would say that it's a pattern in the midst of voting rights, but I think it's just a pattern in the way that the country is trying to deal with race generally, right? Again, this again kind of to me, again, it's this, you're right, it's this colorblind sort of approach that sounds really fair and right on the surface. But it doesn't take into account the harm that has already been done because of the non-blindness to color, if you will, right? There's all kinds of harm that's already been done because race was such a specific thing and used to create it. And now you're saying, no, let's take race out. And we've been dealing with this for a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels like there's two dynamics that I think of that, like, I'm thinking, like, the first thing I thought about was, we have the conversation around DEI, we have the conversation around affirmative action, and we have a conversation around now the Voting Act. And all those, there's a commonality between all those, which is to say those things, DEI, affirmative action, and this are operating, I think, on the assumption that if they were not there, people of color would be innately disadvantaged.
Yeah.
Right. Because racism of some sort, covertly or overtly, is a default dynamic in the American culture. And because it's a default dynamic, we need laws that will neutralize or attempt to neutralize that racist dynamic. And so we put into place these things, DEI, African American, affirmative action, and even this, right? Because what we're saying, and I believe this is true still, is the honor of America in the area of race is not yet at the level that we would make decisions that are truly representative of every person. So we need some law to help us do that. Right. So the other thought I had is back to the monopoly example we always talked about for years, which is, hey, you and I are playing Monopoly, and let's say you cheated, you socked me.
Why I gotta be the one to cheat?
I socked Marcus and knocked him out, and I took 8 turns while he was asleep, and then he woke up and then found out that I took 8 turns without the proper one turn.
Right.
And so then he gets to take 8 turns. Now, while he's taking his 8 turns, I'm going to pull up the rule book and say, hey, the right way to play Monopoly is that we switch turns. And I'm right, because the right way to play Monopoly is that is one turn after the other. But something unjust happened. And right now we're in the middle of undoing the unjust action of me having stole turns, so he gets to take extra turns outside of the rule. And then once that is settled, then we return to our my turn, his turn, my turn dynamic. And this the DEI, the affirmative action, the voting thing, eventually I think you do want to get to the place where you're like, you know what, we don't need a law that tells us to make sure that we build our districts with all the right considerations, racial considerations. But until such time as we do, we're still in the 8 turns in a row era of this particular thing. And you're showing me, hey, that's not the way the game is actually supposed to go. This is the principle that we actually should be doing, is agreed upon after we get past this session. Now, I don't know that is an A to A example,
right?
But it is those two things are the things that immediately popped up in my head.
The monopoly thought process,
the monopoly concept, and the idea that by default we need a law like this because the nation is not yet ready to think and make decisions in a racialized, honoring way.
No,
so if we were able to if we have proved ourselves to have been enough past the racism behavior that we don't need this law anymore. This law is ridiculous. We've already learned this lesson. Cool. Then we don't need it, and we can get rid of it, and we can do what we ought to do. But we have not yet at all. In fact, we have regressed.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going the opposite.
And it's going the opposite direction. So this law is needed more than ever now to ensure that, because the behavior isn't right. So
is it going to the opposite? All right. Is it going in the opposite direction because we overshot already? Right? Do you know what I mean? Like, let's just say you take your 8 turns Monopoly conversation. Do did we already take the 8 turns and now it feels like we're taking 4 more? And so people who were the ones who did the socking are like, you've overshot.
I think that's what they would say. I think that's what they would say. They would say, we're past, we gave you this advantage.
Yes.
For a little bit, but we're past the point where you get to have that advantage. And I would say that it's not about an advantage. It's about the essence, the honor of the practice. And but of course we live in a very advantageous, power hungry, self-promoting, self-profiting kind of thinking. And so we're looking for every tool to quote unquote win for ourselves as opposed to doing the right thing. So,
and that comes back to what we talked about, I think, even in our power podcast around fear. The fear, I wonder if it's less about the idea that the amount of turns have been done as much as the momentum that it feels as though we're going to overshoot the turns. You know what I mean? It's like first turn was a little slow, second turn, and like third, fourth, fifth, and now it's looking like, oh, this is going to get so crazy that we actually won't be able to stop when we actually get to quote unquote equal, and it's just going to overshoot, and then I'm going to be the one who's disadvantaged here, right?
That's
and so we need to stop
the opportunities are going to get lost eventually. That's right. Like, I can't buy Park Place. You bought it because you keep getting turns, right? So
exactly, and the momentum and get stuff I didn't get before, and all these things, and I think people just need, for me, I'm just kind of sitting back when I hear these spaces, and I'm trying to figure out what is the measurement that people have. Well, I don't think this actually, I'll say this, but I don't think this actually has anything to do with it. But I'll say it like this: what is the measurement that people have to determine whether we have reached a space in which everyone has equal opportunity? Right? It's not that everybody has to have the same amount of stuff. This is not equality. This is equity. Or it's right. This is different. Do people have the same opportunity to be able to succeed in the world as they have before? Now, I am not opposed to reparation either. Right? Like, I think, hey, Antwuan, you knocked me off. You knocked me out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get to take my turns. Yeah,
I get to take my turns. But even like, if I don't get to take my turns, you better give me some of this stuff that you took from me while I was knocked out. I mean, the analogy goes all kinds of ways. But all that to say is, like, I don't know if necessarily what we're seeing in this Voting Rights Act right now is specific to that, because this is about managing the dialogue around race in this country. To me,
you think the Voting Act is about managing the dialogue?
I think what we're seeing in this the ways that the court is working, I think it's trying to manage and legislate, if you will, the dialogue around race and set it in a law setting, right? We saw this with police officers. Like, you can't say that a police officer was profiling you, racially profiling you, unless the police officer says something that is specifically racial, right? If he drives up on you and say, what's up? No, you know what I mean? Gives you the N-word right there. Then you can be, oh, that was a racist profiling. But if he comes up and says, I see that you were driving this urban looking car in this white neighborhood.
Do you live in this neighborhood?
Do you live in this neighborhood? Right. So again, we talked about it last time, dog whistles, you know what I'm saying? And so if I can go, I think he was racially profiling me, and I go to court and they're like, no, the only way you can prove it now is if he said something racially motivated or derogatory or racially specific to you. That's it. And that's what this is too. It's like, you can't even use the term race. In fact, the only way you can push against the redrawing of districts that you may think are being redrawn for racial reasons is if you hear the people who are redrawing them say something specific about their drawing it for racial reasons, which we know nobody's going to say anything about drawing it for racial reasons. That goes back to what we were talking about last time with the guy who was working with Nixon, I think, and talking about, we're not using the N-word anymore. Well, no.
They are using
take that back. People are using the N-word now, right? They're just not. They're just using it differently.
Yeah, Reagan, don't talk about it like that. You use these words. Yeah, urban. Right. Yeah,
exactly. So I think this is trying to legislate the conversation, the terminology, so that other things can be.
It may be that that's where it's at with the Supreme Court. I have it connected to the DEI, the de-wokenizing of the quote unquote de-wokening of the law. And this feels like, I would imagine, if someone who's super sensitive to quote unquote woke things, then this is a woke provision. and we're going to what's the word, dismantle anything that smells like wokeness, and that's what it. So it feels a part of the DEI, all the stuff.
Pushback.
But yeah, and it's a power grab. It's the twofer. You're allowed to do it because woke has become the boogeyman. So you get to say, hey, we're taking away this woke provision because you are amazing, white America. And there's no way that you're actually in any way, conscious or subconscious, thinking through a racial lens. So we trust that you are great, and we're going to ensure that you're in power, because we want, like we were talking about before, we want to make sure that America is a white nation with other people, not just a diverse nation. And we want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to make choices, because if we're thinking the best, we believe that you will do what's proper for everyone. And that just feels weird to me. The law, I can get it's the same reason we have speed limits. Like, because if we didn't have them, we would all go faster, although we all go faster now anyway. But
I'm not owning that. Talk about it.
But if we didn't have them, the whole point of the law is because if without the law, you might have this behavior more. You know? And so if you're putting a law in place, you're not reinforcing normal expected behavior, you're preventing behavior that is unwanted. And if you don't have a law, then you're assuming that behavior is fine. And it's not. The default behavior of the American culture, at minimum, is affected by racism, if not centralized in some places by racism.
Yeah, and even if you, again, to your point, like even if you don't want to talk about it from, there's an intentionality and there's of racial spaces, what we have to continue to recognize is that so much of the ways America has been designed systemically, in the ways even our cities have been created, if you will, come from a history and a heritage, if I will, a heritage of racial discrimination, right? Like that's just facts, right? The reason why we have these, in many cases, some of these districts we're talking about that they're trying to split so they can split up minorities were created for minorities to stay in. And now there's a way in which these minorities are finding ways to use their power to get the thing that they want so that they can try to adjust the way that they're living, and pull out of some of these scenarios that were created by these, racially discriminatory policies. And so there's aspects of that are at play. So yes, people can't say the word, but that's, again, it goes back to the continual move that everybody's having, which is to scrub any sort of evidence that there was ever any racial mishaps and racial discrimination across the history of this country. And if I can say it, like, this is what's interesting is you already talked about it in the Voting Rights Act. It's not that only in 2026 has somebody tried to mess with this particular law, right? Like, since it came in 1965, there was another case, right, in 1982 where they tried to do something with this law. That's 17 years later. So you're telling me, like, for, let's see, call it 100, let's call it 200 years. For like 200 years, there was blatant racial discrimination, right? Discrimination based on race that was actively and openly working to advantage white people and disadvantage anybody else who wasn't, right? Creating policies, creating cities that all worked towards this. And you get, and where you couldn't vote, right? And there were all these things put in the way of voting. They were intentional. They were written into the law for trying to keep people who were not white to vote, white landowners and men to some extent who were not men. And you get in 1965, you get some kind of change on the voting rights that say, look, we're just going to make sure that you don't do that anymore. And within 17 years, people who are complaining about it, right? We saw the same thing. Actually, it was even faster for affirmative action. I think 1965, you get the Voting Rights Act, but there's other things that are going on right there in 1964. And by 1972, you've got a case going in Northern California where somebody's complaining about the fact that now you are being discriminatory against white people because you are taking race into consideration. So it's not that it was like, okay, you've had your turns, right? It's not that, hey, you had your 8 turns. Before the first turn was even finished,
you pulled out the rule book again and tried to neutralize it. Yep.
Yeah. So it's fascinating to me, but it's a pattern, and it's a strategy, and it's one that I don't get, Antwuan. Like, we've already talked about it. Mm-hmm. If it's, and maybe because there may be arrogance in the midst of all this, which probably there is. If it is true that America will be a majority minority in the next 20 years or so, if that's going to happen, I say it all the time, the long-term play is to make friends, not enemies, right? Because at the end of the day, if you now live in a neighborhood that becomes the minority neighborhood, which is going to be the white neighborhood, if you will, and you want to have people representing you in power, you're going to want to deal with laws, if you will, that are going to take your race into account and how your race is being seen by those in power, so that you can have the opportunity to put people into power that look like you. You're going to want that, but you're putting things in play now that will actually take that power away from you. So it's not a long-term play to me. But I don't think racism ever had a long-term play. It's all about
it's just to stay in power. Now let me give you an opportunity to speak to what I'm sure people are thinking, which is, or what people say, which is, isn't this hypocritical? Why is it that in some places you don't want your race to be considered, and in other places you do want your race to be considered? Or what would you say to the person who says they're confused because of that?
I'm curious. I'd be curious, like, what that means. Like, where is it that I don't want my race to be considered?
Well, they would probably, I'm stepping into character, but they would probably,
just in case you want to know.
But they would probably cite Dr. King, hey, judgment, want to be judged by the content of my character, not the color of my skin. And so when you're going in for a job interview, just because I'm Black, don't assume this about me. When you pull me over, don't racial profile me. You don't want me to take race into account there. There's these places where we don't want to be, where this person might say, you have complained about race being too big a factor in these places, and now you're complaining that race is not enough a factor in this place, and that feels inconsistent and hypocritical. Help me understand.
Yeah, I think there's actually something deeper going on in that particular narrative that I think we're all still discovering. And I think there is an internalized inferiority complex that even those who are brown kind of take on. Because what I would say is, I want you to take into consideration my race and my ethnic group at all times. And I think that is a very complex and nuanced, beautiful thing, because what that means is, because my belief about who I am and the people I represent is that we are intentionally designed by God. Like, we have very beautiful things that we bring to the world. We have a necessary place in the world that makes the world better. The issue that we've had in this country is we have not seen Black people that way. We have seen Black people as some sort of subhuman or non-human entity, as opposed to being able to see us as the beautiful, Black, talented, brilliant culture that we are and that God has designed us to be. And so what needs to happen is there needs to be an actual, like a new a new marketing campaign, if you will, for Blackness. That, man, when I pull over a Black person, I'm interested because this is a person created by God that's got a very interesting perspective on life that I probably could learn a lot from. And then at the same time going, and man, isn't it terrible that we denied that for so long in this country, that we missed out on the beauty of Black people in so many different ways in this country. And actually, isn't it great, though, that because of their resilience and the power of God in them, that we actually have a lot of amazing things in this country, despite what people did to them. Most of our music is coming from them. Most of our food is coming from them. Most of what makes America America is because of Black people. And if we could all own that, right? If we could all accept that, even our Black brothers and sisters to accept that, then it wouldn't be a negative for you to recognize me as a Black person. Dr. King's statement wouldn't mean anything. Don't judge people by the color of skin, but by the content of their character. No, it's not judging. The only reason we call it don't judge by the color of the skin is because we have created a hierarchy of value that is connected to the skin color, right? What you have to do is get rid of the hierarchy of value and make equality about the skin so that you do judge, and not even judge is even the wrong word, but you do identify me by the color of my skin, because it actually connects me to a beautiful creation and a beautiful culture that comes from a part of the world that's bringing my treasures to you here, much like Revelations 21 says. Right. So that's where I get into that. So I know that that's probably like, it's not what people are saying. Right.
Yeah. So but for you, like, there's no, so which is all beautifully said. So there's no, so for Marcus, there's no inconsistency here, because for you, hey, take my skin into account, my race into account in nearly every scenario.
Here's what I'll bring it back,
but the rewriting of the branding of the interaction in the first place.
That's right. Right. It is the merging of two complex ideas that I talk about when I teach on cultural intelligence and racial intelligence. It's the post and the pre and the post hyphen. Right. I talk about it all the time. You got African American. That hyphen is what's in between, and that hyphen is it's small, but it's doing a lot of work. It's separating the beautiful culture, the thing that God has created in the midst of this African culture, from the experience that this African culture has had in America, right? And one of them is a beautiful thing, and the others has a lot of tragedy associated with it. And so if you're dealing with me and you recognize both of those things as you come into my space, you will have a much better understanding and a much more appreciation, I think, for me than this country has given throughout its history.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have a different? I mean, do you have a different answer? Go for
it. I asked a question without having really played it out, but I think I would say my position in this moment is slightly different. I would say that where correction and reparation is, or any of that sort of thing, is the end game is justice, which is, for me, is the way things ought to be. And some scenarios, when we're dealing with the artifacts of racial problems or racial dynamics of history, yes, you need to be aware of the effect of racial history on me as an African American specifically,
for sure,
which is different than a Spanish American. They have a different thing, and which is different than an Irish American who might come over, or any other group, right? There's some. So when we are in this repair mode, if we were to understand that that's what we're doing, then yes, there are some things where I'm like, hey, take my skin into account, because that colors what's going on and why it's different than what you might be expecting with everyone else. And then there's other places where I don't think that my skin color should have a major bearing on what you're seeing. My skill set or my value that I'm bringing to the table is my value. And what I wouldn't want is for someone to undervalue me based on my skin color, but also not coddle me or put me in places where where I don't belong because I am a Black person either. So I could see where to me, it is not inconsistent. What we're asking for is for the Black person. What I would be asking for is for the Black person to be properly valued in every scenario, and every scenario has different levels of debt, of racialized debt associated to it that that may be affecting why you would be seeing my skin color and why you wouldn't. But I hear what you're saying too. I don't know that both of those ideas are really interesting to tease out.
Well, and I think it goes back to what I was telling you. This is ultimately the codifying of language. Right. And race is the word.
Yes.
Right? And so, this concept is people will say race isn't real. It doesn't exist. And biologically, you say, yes, absolutely. Race is this social construct that was created kind of in a Western move of the world, whatever.
Yeah.
So yes, this biological understanding of race as a scientific categorization system is true, but the truth of the matter is race is real, because people worked off of this false systems
were built
for forever, right? And so, like I said before, and so because they worked off of this hierarchical value system, they created policies and oppressive systems that inside that system, the move was to bake into that system ways to protect white people and to oppress Black people. And this isn't, again, these are facts. You can look them up, you can read them. This isn't me I'm not making this up, right? And so race is not real, but the effects of race are real and still happening. And so what we're trying to do is we are trying to right the wrongs of what happened underneath the misconstrued classification of people in race. We're trying to right that wrong. And to your point, I think you said, Antwuan, when we get that right, then maybe we don't have to use the word race anymore. Also, using the word race continues to connect a particular people who have a particular skin color with something that ultimately positions them in their heritage and history as the villain, right? It doesn't mean you're a villain today. You get to choose to be a villain today or not. And here's what I'm saying. When you do things like this, when you create and you take away these opportunities to make right the issues that were created under this false category of race, you are now taking on you're taking on the villain role. Again, you're putting it on again. We are more than happy to let you take the villain hat off, but you keep putting it on. And so this kind of thing is just putting the villain hat back on. But it's done in a way in which you think you're the victim, right? And you're trying to protect yourself, but you actually become the villain again. Right. And that's ultimately, as you say it all the time, like that's ultimately what's happening in this country is anybody who's associated with the heritage of whiteness, and I'll use that as an ideology and skin color to some extent, but mostly ideology. Anybody who's connected to that is trying to disconnect themselves from that. And boy, if you can get rid of that word race and take that out of the history books, take that out of the laws, then in 50 years, nobody's going to be even thinking anything about that. And therefore, anything that would be any animosity that would still be sitting around in those who have been oppressed by the word race and the construct that's connected to it would then not take punitive action on those who created the system, who are now minorities.
Yeah. It's weird. Like we've said it before a long time ago, that the American systems, capitalism, and I would even say democracy too, I think we were built. I would say we're built based on the honor system. There's a base level of honor,
right?
That we're all supposed to be having. And the laws that are created are believing that we have this honor system. It's me setting out cookies and saying, everybody take one, and walking away, believing that the room has honor.
It's the Halloween candy.
And they will take one cookie instead of the first person getting there taking five. Right. That's what I mean by the honor system.
Yeah.
So we believe that we have honor, and in an honor system, shame is the great enemy. So you don't want to be shamed. You don't want to feel bad. And what laws do when they permit dishonorable action, it removes the shame. It says, I can do this. It's not against the law. It's okay. And what I am positing is that America does not have enough honor in the racial category.
Yes.
For us to remove laws because the honor system is not working in that category. We need bumpers. We need guardrails in that category. And we've got to be very clear about those because we, on the face of it, sure. Like, again, the honor system, but there's without any real teeth behind our statements. Yeah, especially if you're going to permit it you're going to permit it inside of a law. You remove the shame, for lack of a better term, not in a grace way, but in an enabling way. You remove the shame and you allow people to do heinous things and feel good about it.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels like for me. And I would love to say that America grows to the place where we have enough honor in this honor system to do what we think is right. But as long as we are profit-based and increasingly self-interested, which is what capitalism is based on, is pursuing your own self-interest.
Which is why you have people's self-interest.
And individualized culture who competes instead of lives in community. As long as those are the core tenets of our culture, then the sort of honor that would produce racism-free districting that leads to equality and representation of all voices, that's not going to happen.
Well, and I think what Section 2 in this original Voting Rights Act of 1965 was trying to do was to protect the default, protect communities from the default.
Yes,
as you said, the default is to do things that are about self-interest, which have racial implications, right? And again, I would say there's lots of people out there who are participating in the furthering of this that would say it's not my intention to do that. But what Section 2 was showing, and why Section 2 was created and adjusted in 1982 around this idea of outcome as opposed to intention, is because what it recognized is, you can say whatever you want in the law, but you've got to evaluate it.
Well,
if you evaluate are you going to bring back CRT? Or is that what you about to? I knew you were coming. I saw you.
Point of critical race theory.
Yeah. I know. So that's in literally critical race theory, which was a law-based evaluation of looking at laws to say, okay, you said this was going to stop inequality. Let's just evaluate it. Let's take a look over the course of the year, the course of a couple of years. Did it actually do what you said it was going to do? No, it actually had an adverse outcome on the very communities it was trying to help. So it wasn't about intention. Your intention was to do something. So if you're caught up in the villain conversation, then remove that because you had good intentions. But right, what is it? The road to hell is marked with good intentions, right? So it's just because you had good intentions, you still had this outcome that happened. So you've got to own this had that outcome, and to fix that thing that led to that outcome. And now and so that's where, and this is a biblical. The whole thing is a biblical tension, right? There's all those things inside the Bible that articulate the idea of you can have, you know what I mean? You can have great intentions, but where's the fruit? You know what I mean? We got to figure out the fruit of that. Now, it's not to say that God is not also wanting to know the intentions and the values of your heart too, as you do things, for sure, because you can do a lot of great things and have a terrible heart about it, and God is like, why would you even do that, right? But we recognize like this is part of the wrestle that we have to engage, and the law was there to protect people who have good intentions and bad intentions from creating things that were going to have disadvantage or
that hurts. That's harmful. So you either accidentally harm people or you intentionally harm people, but we're trying to eliminate the harm. That's right. And if someone can tell you, hey, this is harmful, you would you would hopefully be able to, and again, that goes back to the CRT. What CRT was trying to do is give you a series of principles by which to think about your lawmaking,
right,
so that you wouldn't hurt. But anyway, no, it just became like, well, whatever.
I know. And unfortunately, in this country, the people who get harmed are always the same people.
The same people.
So again,
and well, if it goes the other way, the harm is so minimal. The harm is discomfort.
Yeah, that's right.
It's discomfort more than it is. I mean, it feels like sometimes like there are white people, of course, who are struggling, and no one's saying white people have it all. Please don't get all that twisted. And even when we're saying white people, we're not saying every white person. We're talking about the concept of whiteness, right? So don't overly personalize unless the shoe hits you, and then say ouch, but if it don't hit you, then we're not talking to you, but what we're seeing is the shoe's going to hit a lot of people, and it didn't take long for Florida and some other states to, after this resolution happened, they start moving.
Yeah, go for it.
They start moving. And what happened? The Democratic, the blue states started saying, well, we're going to do it too. And this isn't justice. This isn't, this is eye for the Bible. This is eye for an eye stuff. This is why Jesus doesn't say, this is why he says that we don't do eye for an eye. He says that justice is making things right. And what's right is not one-eyed people.
Yeah.
That's not what was intended. Right?
No.
So we got to figure out how to get things right again, and that's justice. And we're continuing to use, which I'm in the boat. Like eye for an eye feels like justice, and I still wrestle with that.
And that's the thing. And as I was talking about earlier, like you're setting up a system that ensures that no one gets gerrymandered or whatever because of them being the minority oppressed group, right? If you let's just say it was white people that were getting constantly oppressed in the middle of that, this law, Section 2, would help it would help them and be like, hey, you guys are not letting this particular block of people get their representation because you're drawing lines to separate them. So this law would protect that. Right now, because of the country we live in, it's protecting brown people, right? But if you were white and you were living in India and they had the same deal, it would be protecting you because the Indians would be the majority, right? So it's about the just law that's going to work for everybody. This is what we talked about last time. It is in some ways a way to use self-interest in very positive ways. It is long-term strategic thinking. If I am a person who is a power player and the quote-unquote so-called white race, whatever that kind of thing is, like whoever that is, you are not playing the long game here. And I think it's arrogance. I think these people who are in the driver's seat making these decisions have a belief that they can stop the browning of America. They believe they can stop it. They're like, you know what? We got 20 years. We can stop this stuff. And part of it, immigration. That's why all this conversation around immigration is happening. Hey, we need to get these brown people out. We need to take care. We need to take away DACA, which they did, right? We need to take natural citizenship, right? Like all these things, like they're trying to, how do we get brown people out of here? Because if they stay, they will continue to grow and they will be a power. And then they may do to us what we did to them. The long term is, and here's, if I'm a Christian, again, I come back to, I think we said it before, the soil that we are on, the country that has been built, even in all of its terribleness, has created a way for every tribe and tongue and nation to exist in a particular place where they could actually worship together their God. And I will tell you, most people who are immigrating here, somewhere between 48 and 52% of the people who are immigrating here are Christians. And we're afraid. We're trying to get people out, but we're missing lining up with the beautiful opportunity that God has laid out. The opportunity to exist and experience this Revelation 7:9, all tribes, tongues, and nations church, a slice of that here on earth. We're missing it. And it's so disconcerting to watch our religious leaders and and 88% of our white evangelical brothers continuing to support and vote for these kinds of policies that are about conserving and preserving America, but not preparing the way for the most powerful evangelistic opportunity that we could create in this country, which is to show a church where all tribes, tongues, and nations are threaded together worshiping God.
Mm-hmm.
We're missing it. And it's always hard because we get on here, we talk about it, and like,
but there's, again, we go back to it. There's no imagination for that, and there's no energy, or I rarely run into energy that is excited about that, whose hair stands up at the thought of that. Like, man, how amazing that would be, right? Instead, that's like, I don't know, man, but where do I fit in that? Like, the question immediately goes to what's in it for me in that? Like, and that's where it just gets lost. And if the flashing neon sign of our life is what's in it for me, and we're gonna make decisions continually, like, what's in it for me? That's the primary way of thinking through what's in it for me and mine. If it's not you, then it's you and yours. Then we will never get to where
this is where I'm going to push on my black and brown brothers and sisters here. You cannot keep walking around articulating that white people have no place in this, that Europeans have no place in this. Yes, of course, the history is terrible, right? But this is why there's this concept in Christianity called forgiveness, right? Like, we have to work into that. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is a requirement of a Christian living, is to move toward forgiveness, because those who've forgiven much can forgive others, right? Otherwise, you're just going to be the unrepentant servant, right? That you come out and choking people out, and God just released you from everything. We've got to stop the narrative of saying there's no place for white people in this. White people need to be quiet. White people like this. Yes, there's history, but they are still a part of the image of God. They're still a part of the tapestry of the image of God. If there is a puzzle that's being made about the image of God, European people in different places, they also hold a puzzle piece that they are bringing to the city in Revelations 21, I believe, where they bring their glory from the nations. They bring it to the city. They've got a piece that they bring too. And without them, we don't actually get the full image of God. Yes, for hundreds of years, they have tried to be all pieces for all people. What we have to do is to help them. And if I can talk to my white brothers and sisters, you need to understand your cultural background. You need to understand that, not your white background, but your cultural background, right? You are a European American. You are a French American. Remember where I said the pre-hyphen, post-hyphen stuff? Like, there is a piece of your culture that is beautiful, and you are supposed to bring something to this image of God. You've been taking everything. Stop taking everything and just take your part. Your part is perfect and beautiful, and you have a particular relationship with God that we need, but you need us too. So stop taking everything. And then my black and brown sisters, stop trying to get rid of their piece. We need that piece. Yeah. If we would all do that, then it wouldn't be so frightening to try to figure out what it would look like to have a country where everybody's there and all the tribes and tongues and nations, because then we all know, oh, I play a part here. Yes, you do, but play only your part and admit that you didn't play your part for a long time. And therefore, we have got to get you smaller so other people can even exist in the puzzle. And the church said, amen.
Yeah, amen. I'm with that. I'm with it.
Oh, I don't know why I got on soapbox in there. You got me started on this whole thing. Yeah, that's all right. Hey, we get into the end of it, though. But
it is what it is. I mean, but we have to bring kingdom stuff. I know if you're a color commentary listener, or if you're new to it and you're like, man, this stuff feels impractical, it's because the most practical, for me, I'll speak for myself, the most practical thing we can do is ask what the Spirit is doing at any given moment and participate in that. And there's a series of defaults that he's always doing. Forgiveness is always part of it. Great. Like community connectedness, the communal living, unity. Like, these things are always a challenge. Jesus said it. He challenged his disciples regularly around it. It's an ongoing cyclical. The fruits of the Spirit are connected to it: love, joy, peace, long suffering. You can't have suffering if you don't have. You can't have long suffering without suffering. Patience. You got to have difficulty to be patient through. Like, these are regular staples of what it means to be a believer and to work through these things. So we're always going to bring it back to, for the believer, for the church, centering it on kingdom ethic and values. And that's going to feel impractical some days. It's not impractical. It's just a first step. And we always want to start with kingdom thinking and have it be the driver for how we move into practical movement. Yeah. So anyway, we're at it, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hey, you've been listening to Color Commentary. Colorful conversations about some colorful people, about Christianity, culture, and race. And this is what we do. Love to have these convos with you, my friend. And again, I hope I hear it and hope other people hear it. And those who listen to Color Commentary know deeply that we love the church and we believe that it has so much power to do so much good in the world if we were to live into what God has asked us to do here and to follow him in his mission. And sometimes when I see these sort of policies and things coming up, and I know that there's church people who are in power that are allowing these things and telling everybody that they are church people as they do it, it just drives me absolutely crazy. Yeah. And others may say the same. There's probably a white commentary somewhere that's saying the same thing about colored people. You know what I mean? Like they're like, these Christians over here who are non-whites, they think that letting people come in here and let our country get taken away
back in the day.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm glad everybody's listening. I'm glad you're here for all of that. This is Color Commentary, as we said, and one of the things you can do with Color Commentary, if you want to support us, is you can support us by getting some merch. Antwuan, I know you're rocking some merch over there. That Color Commentary hat. Where'd you get that hat from, bro?
Let me show you that real quick.
Yeah. No, if you can't see, he's wearing a white color.
Oh yeah. For all my audio people, yeah.
That's right. It's a great looking hat. You can check it out.
Actually, this one's one that I've gotten a while ago. The one that's on the website is a trucker hat.
That's right.
I was looking at a minute ago. So it's slightly different than this one. But
where they gonna find it, fool?
Still hotness. Oh, go to wearethreaded.org. And when you're there, you'll see in the menu at the top there, you can click on shop. You'll click that, and that will take you to the shop. And you'll see all kinds of stuff. You got Color Commentary shirts there. You got Color Commentary hats. We're powered by Threaded, so there's some Threaded specific merch there. There's some also really cool like slogans and designs. Celebrate the Beautiful has been one that we've been at a couple of conferences, and they picked those up. Yeah. We've got some hoodies there, and so if you're wondering what's the best way you can support Color Commentary, there's always like subscribe to the YouTube channel if that's where you're at. Hit the like button. Follow us on Instagram. Share the show with someone you think would be encouraged by it. And go ahead and get yourself a little gift. Get yourself a little merch. Little hat, little t-shirt.
Yeah.
Hoodie. I don't know. It's April, so I don't know how well we're going to.
Hey, I was in a hoodie this morning. You saw me. I've been in a hoodie all day. It's cold. Cold in Texas today. I don't know how we got to the end.
And then turn it to 68 and then put a hoodie on.
That's right.
But yeah, I'd be awesome if you guys were to do that. So if you're up to it, then got a few extra pennies. Send them our way.
Hey, look, we like the kind of money that jingles, but we prefer the kind that folds. There it is. Hey, thanks for listening in, everybody. Color Commentary. This may be our last one of the season here, I think, here, Antwuan.
Probably, yeah.
Good season. Had some good guests on here as well, and some good conversations. Going to take our little break for the summer. I know lots of things going on. I got a graduate about to happen. My son's got some trips and stuff that we got to do, so may go off and retool, see what we're coming back with into the new season. We've been so appreciative of all those of you who have shouted out and listened and hollered at us when we're at events and things of that nature. And we love.
Yeah, I'm always surprised for some reason when someone goes like, "Hey, you're Antwuan." I'm like, "Yes." Not yes like that. That sounded like I was
say like
no, yes. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, I listen to you all the time." And I don't know why that always surprises me, but it does. But it's also it's a delight to meet listeners and to hear what us just rambling on talking about stuff, what impact God uses, how he chooses to use that to make impact. So it's always fun to meet Color Commentary. Keep us.
That's right. Well, if you got comments and you want to talk about how much the commentary has meant to you, you can put them in the YouTube comment there. Love to hear from you guys. And we love you, and we're looking forward to coming back strong in the next season to see what God has for us. But until then, you know that colored commentary is all about creating colorful lenses. That's why we use the term colored. Colorful lenses for you to look through to be able to see the world, the beautiful world, the kaleidoscope that God has created, and all the perspectives that come so that we can fully thread together and create the image of God, which is why we say to you every time we get to the end of the show, make sure that you stay colored.